Welcome to another episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon. I'm your host, Mitch Lafon, and I'm joined by Killer Dwarfs frontman Russell Dwarf. Good day, sir.
How you doing, Mitch?
Good.
Good to be alive. Yeah.
Well, yeah. In your case, after your accident in the spring, yeah.
It's another day. It's another beautiful day in the great country of Canada.
The great country of Canada. Now, we are going to be talking about the great country of the States.
Mm-hmm. The United States of America.
Yes, because we have the sort of number one defender of the American way as a guest today, Mr. Ted Nugent.
Mm-hmm. If you could, describe Ted in one word, it would be
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, but patriot.
Yeah, an absolute patriot. And what's funny about Ted is, I tried to stay focused on the music because he's got a new album called ShutUp&Jam. And for some reason, when you ask him about the album, it turns into President Obama has failed in his mission. And it's like, yeah, I see how that works.
Yeah, well, I think it's all intertwined with his life. Everything seems to, mold into his passion, and obviously his passion is politics and survival. And he's got a lot of passion, even if you don't like his politics, which I don't, really like when entertainers get into politics. But that's Ted, and he's one of a kind. There's no doubt about it, and he's got a lot to say. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
And he's an entertaining guy, you know what I mean? When I was a kid, that was, in the 70s, when we were teenagers, I don't think Double Live Gonzo came off the turntable for, any amount of time, for sure.
Well, that's the thing. We got to focus back on the music with Ted.
Exactly.
You listen to Stranglehold, for example. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a brilliant song, absolutely classic.
Oh, Great White Buffalo and
Cat Scratch Fever.
Yeah, he's got all the classic Ted Nugent, and and if you look back, Ted was in a started in music
Amboy.
in Amboy Dukes in 1965. So
wow.
This guy's got socks older than both of us.
Yeah, and
Theodore Anthony Nugent.
And he plays like a monster, and I think that's what's become sort of sadly overshadowed in the last few years is that he is a guitar god. I mean, he does play like a motherfucker, right?
Yeah, no, he does for sure, and he was always great to hear in interviews back when we were young and stuff. Cause I don't think he inserted so much politics, but he's passionate about his country, which is a great thing. I wish Canadians were a bit more passionate.
Well, he did have some nice things to say about Canada as well. He comes up here quite often and does his hunts and stuff. So he loves our wildlife, I guess.
He does. He could come up here and hunt politicians.
Well,
we'll get Ted up here.
We'll get Ted.
Ted Nugent for king.
Yeah. So, and then other than that, after the Ted interview, which, by the way, I was told, hey, you've got 10 to 15 minutes with Ted. And he stayed on for like 40 minutes with me, which is...
He did. And I think he would have went on and on and on. He's he's interesting, though. It's one of the best interviews you've done. I think you asked the right questions and you really got him fired up.
I did. Well... Let's be honest. I didn't really get a chance to ask him much questions. I went, hello, and hey, I'm over here, Ted. Hello. Yeah. All right.
But he loved your sobriety comment, so that was good.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. I wasn't kissing ass or anything. I've just never done drugs, and I don't drink. I mean,
I know that's why I do all the drugs and I do all the drinking.
That's right.
In this operation. So
you. What is it called? We distribute the wealth or whatever. You.
That's right.
We even it out.
That's right.
You're the yin to my yang, I guess.
Yes, we're kidding, kids. We're kidding.
No, yeah, no.
Don't text and drive.
I mean, Russ does have a beer here and then, but no, there are no drugs in the Killer Dwarves dressing rooms.
No, there's just rum. And I don't even partake in the rum, but we are Canadian. But anyways, on with our adventure.
Yeah, on with the adventures. And then after that, after we're done with Ted, we're going from sort of that classic arena rock into a complete thrash metal world. We're going to talk to Bobby, or some like to call him Bobby Blitz, of Overkill. Many fans feel that Overkill is one of the big four of thrash metal, you know, with Metallica and Megadeth and Slayer. Big fan of thrash, Mr. Russ?
I can't say that I'm a big fan. I can appreciate, you know, all what these guys do because they've been around so long. You know, we all started around the same time, like in 1980. These guys have got, 17, 18 albums out or something. You
Ton
know,
of albums.
You know, and there's another, you know, passionate people about their music and stuff, and something for everybody. And, you know, I appreciate, you know, their dedication to absolutely.
Yeah, you know, I joined the thrash metal scene much later in life. In the 80s when it was going on, I was more into your Bon Jovis and your Poisons and your Rats and stuff. But as we moved into the late 90s and early 2000s, that's when I really the 90s I discovered Metallica, obviously. But that's when I really started getting into Anthrax and Megadeth and those kinds of bands. So it's great to hear from Bobby on, you know, the history of Overkill and you know, their new video and their new album and all that wonderful stuff.
And how they write and how they get into it and everything. You know, it's to still be together. You got to hand it to these cats, definitely. You know,
and to make new music every 2 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. They definitely have a work ethic.
Yeah. Well, and that's where the common thread comes in with both these artists today, with Ted and with Overkill, is that they are both hard working, and I'll use the word again, but they're hard working motherfuckers. I mean, those two, you can say whatever you want about their politics, you can say whatever you want about thrash metal, but as people who show up and do a job, those two guys do a job. Now, of course, let's not forget that since we are talking to Overkill, they are part of this year's Heavy Montreal Festival, which takes place August 9th and 10th at Parc Jean Drapeau in beautiful downtown Montreal. And of course, the other thrash guys are going to be there. Anthrax is going to join them. Slayer is going to join them.
Voivod.
Metallica, Voivod, Metallica. So there will be a lot of thrashing going on at Parc Jean Drapeau in August. But, you know, why don't we just tune in to Ted right now and see what our Patriot has to say.
No, what a fucking career, huh? How about that? Guy looked to the heavens every day and thanked the good Lord. This is just unbelievable. You should see it from where I'm sitting, Mitch.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yes.
I wish I could see it from where you were sitting, but
it's so much
unfortunately
fun,
I'm on the other side.
It's just so intoxicating, the positive energy and the just the spirit of the band and the crew and my management and my unbelievable family and just everybody around me. My God, I'm just drunk on spirit.
Yes, well, you know, let's get talking about the new album, ShutUp&Jam. You know, you've had some very sort of controversial political opinions. And
yeah, it's real controversial that an able-bodied person should be as productive as possible. Boy, that's a far-out concept.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, a lot of fans, and especially non-fans, said, hey, you know, Ted, just, you know, shut up and jam. And I guess that's sort of where the inspiration for this album came from?
Yeah, well, you know, yes and no.
Okay.
The real party animals, and I don't mean getting drunk and stumbling and puking. That's not a party in the Ted Nugent world. No. A party is fun and laughter and being with people that are positive and going to a Ted Nugent rock and roll concert and dancing like an animal. Those people love my politics, even when I'm doing it tongue in cheek and going Richard Pryor on them. So nobody who buys a ticket to a Ted Nugent show really wants me to really shut up and just jam. They want both. They want the outrageous fun in between. That's what you remember about the Philadelphia gig. I mean, the stuff I say in between songs is as exciting and outrageous as the songs. Yep. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
That's some fun shit. So the term "shut up and jam," you know, because it really is. The term diabolical comes to mind. The line drawn in the sand today. The left versus right is just going to go down in history as one of the most soulless, idiotic chapters in America. Where, you know, Reagan tore down the wall in Germany, and now this new community organizer wants to re-erect one, and it's just mind-boggling that my haters don't think that people should be productive. They don't think you should earn what you get. They think you should have somebody take it from the earners and give it to you. I mean, my side of the line drawn in the political sand is you never ask your country to do something for you. You demand of yourself the maximum you can do for your country. On the other side are people that refuse to do anything for their country and demand that the other side does everything for them. And I mean, that sounds like a broad generalization, but unfortunately, in the final analysis of everything Pelosi and Obama and these monsters stand for, that's really what they're talking about. So it becomes real heartbreaking. But because I'm so energized, because I'm 66 years clean and sober, and I'm so alive and I'm healthy, and even with 2 new knees and this ferocious pain mismanagement from the knee surgery, I'm still really, really alive and energized, and I care so much about this country because I spend so much time with heroes that are blown to smithereens, that have sacrificed for the basics of the Constitution and independence and rugged individualism and self-sufficiency, that when I see people that are against rugged individualism, that are about dependency, I fight and I fight, but I never get tired, I never get worn out, and I always grab my guitar and I shut up and jam.
Yeah.
And so it's a good relief, and it's a good reminder that my audiences are filled with people that just don't agree with me. Maybe they don't like venison, maybe they don't like hunting, maybe they don't like guns, maybe they don't like independence, maybe they like dependency, maybe they like to get stoned and drool and ruin their lives and their neighbors and their families' lives, but they still come to the concert and they have a good time. So, hey, everybody, shut the fuck up and let's rock. And so that's where that spontaneous eruption of a song came from. Like all my songs. I've never sat down in my life, Mitch, with a legal pad and a pen and gone, what should I write a song about today? What key should it be in? Should it be up-tempo? I wonder what kind of groove would be good. I've never in my life given one moment of thought. When I grab my guitar, it just happens. I'm so lucky that every song I've ever written just happened. Every song. And this album reeks of that. They're all spontaneous and knee-jerk garage band, loud, noisy, instinct grinds and grooves and bastardizations of boogie-woogie and honky-tonk. And I think that's why the energy and the honesty and the authority of the music is so cool on this record.
Yeah, there is a lot of energy. The one thing that I want to ask you about is it's been 7 years since the last album, and the music industry is sort of in disarray. No, in fact, it is in disarray. Why bother making a new album? Why not just go and play the summer sheds? And, I mean, the same amount of fans are going to show up. What compels you?
I'm a belligerent motherfucker. I don't know if you've noticed that about me. Mm-hmm. That should be the next album title. Ted Nugent, belligerent motherfucker. I live for the music. I know that there's no industry. I know that the industry that was so alive and so honest and so celebratory in the 50s, 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, and even into the damn Yankees in the 90s, it's gone. There's not a record store where the record store owner and the rack jobber love the fucking music. Mm-hmm. The distributor, everybody at the distributor loved the fucking music. The owner of the distributing building loved the music. And I'm not just guessing, because I used to do tours in the industry and go to the stores, go to the distributors, go to the warehouse, go to the A&R department, meet the president, meet the publicity department. Everybody loved the fucking music.
They did.
So that's gone. It literally doesn't exist anymore. Now, maybe a microcosm of that with the Justin Timberlake, who's just stunning, and Bruno Mars, who is stunning, and I don't know who else. I can't think of some of the country bands, but some of those gals can sing their fucking asses off. I love them. Right. I can't think of their names.
Well, like Carrie Underwood, for example.
Yes, that's exactly who I'm thinking of. God, what eye candy is that? And anyhow, and ear candy. Are you kidding me? So there's still monstrosity talent out there. And Bruno Mars is my favorite right now. And I love everything Dave Grohl does, and I love the Chili Peppers, even though you can't call them a new band. And even Bruno Mars isn't really new, but I guess he's one of the new guys. And I love what Justin Timberlake does. I mean, and I love Kid Rock, and I love Jack White and Eminem, and I like this McElroy or whatever his name is. I get a kick out of that authority. They have a buoyancy and an authenticity to what they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But
so that's
alive.
That's alive, but they'll never know what I know. They'll never know the entire army of humanity that loves every fucking song and the spirit of the artist. So I do this record because that's what I do. I make music. I love my songs. In 7 years, it was starting to piss me off. I Still Believe 6-7 years ago. I wrote Barbecue 5 or 6 years ago. I wrote Do-Rags in the 45 10 fucking years ago. Wow. And I said, my fellow man needs this shit. They need to hear this shit. And so it was kind of an alignment of the strange planets because I had both of my knees replaced in February, so I was immobilized, and if you want to get me in the studio, I'm going to have to be immobilized. So it was just good luck that I could get all those guys together. So it was an alignment of the planets that was just coincidental to capturing the music I so love, and my band loves, and Michael Lutz loves it, and Tim and Andy Patalan love it. We love this music, so that's that positive appreciation of that original rhythm and blues grind and the bass and drum groove and the fiery guitar eruptions of guitars and loud amps in a garage when you're 10 years old. That's why it was all so honest and spontaneous, and I think the record reeks of all those attributes.
It really does, and I also like the fact that the songs are, don't bore me, get to the chorus kind of thing. They're 2.5 minute, 3 minute songs, and they just slay you right from the beginning. I mean, they just go really well.
Boy, I tell you, Mitch, thank you for that. That's all I need to hear, and I hear it in every interview. People who still love music, uppity, spirited, authentic, believable, passionate music, they're all saying that same thing, and I really appreciate that appreciation still exists. So thank you for that.
It really does. I'm in Montreal. I'm a Canadian. And the last time you came through town, you were opening for Kiss. It's been 14 years, I believe. And year after year, Ted Nugent tours the U.S. When is Ted Nugent going to get to Canada, get to Europe, get to Japan?
God, there's that prioritization of one's time and energy.
Right.
My life, Mitch, is so fucking amazing. I got 2 Labradors at my feet that are completely worn out from this morning's squirrel hunt. I'm looking at this beautiful pond on my private ranch in Texas. This morning I saw scimitar horned oryx, herds of breeding, thriving African antelope and Barbary sheep and Indian blackbuck and axis deer and white-tailed deer, fawns everywhere. I got white egrets, cattle egrets, and right now I'm looking at 2 blue herons and a red-tailed hawk had just swept by the window when I first started talking to you. I got every imaginable songbird twittering around. I got hummingbirds sucking this nectar out of these feeders out my window right now. I'm getting ready to get on a jet to go to Phoenix, Arizona, and rock my fucking balls into a bloody mess. And my wife is doing charity work with the military now down at our place in Naples, Florida, where we're training specialized trained dogs to bring excitement and cures. We're bringing canine cure for post-traumatic stress syndrome, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm confirming that. I get these big, tough fucking Marines with their legs blown off, crying their eyes out when they get a Labrador Retriever.
Yeah.
So my life is so fucking full. I got 11 grandkids now. I got 9 kids. My brothers and sister and I are always in touch. I only tour during the summer. This is the shortest tour I've ever done in 50 years. I'm only touring 6 weeks, but you should check out my schedule to see just either how strong or how stupid I am. I don't know which it is yet. I think it's a combination of both, because if I wasn't strong, I would die. And if I was any more stupid, I would play 7 nights a week instead of 6. Even though tonight I start 7 in a row. But my point is, I'd love to come to Canada. I love Canada. I hunt Ontario and Quebec every year. I miss my friends in British Columbia and in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And I miss everybody up there in Quebec. I haven't been up to Couchouac hunting caribou in probably 20 years. So I would love to get up there and rock and roll those people. But I do have a bunch of Canadians that come down to my Detroit show every year.
Yeah.
And from 3 or 4 different provinces. And we get together and drink a ginger ale. So I apologize for not getting up there, but I hope I do, because I know I'm going to keep touring. I'll be 66 this year, and you can tell my energy has only increased over the years. But the reason my energy has increased, I think, Mitch, we can both agree that the greatest philosopher of all times was Dirty Harry, when he said, "A good man must know his limitations."
I thought it was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And no, that was Dirty Harry. And I do know my limitations, so I'm energized, but I'm smart to know that at 66, I need to manage those energies. So I only tour while I know I can kill every night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know I still crave the song, so the fire and the passion and the authority never wanes. It never is compromised. So then the hunting season comes, and you just cannot get me out of the woods. September, October, November, December, January, and February. I mean, I hunt every day, every morning and every afternoon. I just love that stuff. And then come spring, this year I was lucky. I'm usually tied up with a lot of speaking engagements and charity work. We do every imaginable children's charity and every imaginable military charity. So I'm really, really busy. But I only have, a couple months every summer to tour. So here's hoping that I'll get back up there.
Yeah, I would love to. You just mentioned Detroit. And, of course, Detroit had you and Alice Cooper and the MC5 and a whole bunch of bands. And it's sort of the bastion of American rock and roll. I mean, Kiss sort of made it big there. What's gone wrong with Detroit?
Oh, it's pretty simple. I mean, it really is just glaringly obvious. Mm-hmm. When I was born there, Mitch, it was the epicenter of work ethic, productivity, demanding of one's excellence, putting your heart and soul into being the best that you can be, making the best widgets and the best doorknobs and the best engines and the best cars and the best. I mean, it really was the epicenter of the post-World War II celebration of good America, victory over evil Japs and Nazis.
Right.
I mean, the pure evil of the Japanese Empire and the Nazis had to be destroyed, and it took Americans and Canadians and the Allies. Right. But it was a force to reckon with of good over evil. So we were unified in pride of productivity, pride of craftsmanship, and you were driven by one battle cry that can be summed up in one word: earn. Right. Whatever you want, earn it. And you can earn it. And if you get up early and put your heart and soul into it, you can earn it to whatever level you dedicate yourself, literally. And then the liberal Democrats with the unions, started chipping away at that driving force of excellence to brainwash union workers. No, you're producing too many doorknobs. If you back down the productivity, I can get you overtime. I can get you more money for less work. Well, that's a death wish. That's spiritual suicide. And then America, based on the epicenter of Detroit, started losing, the title of the best, the title of the hardest workers, all the positive titles, and it started decaying. And I watched, being born there in 48, I watched that start to metastasize in the 60s and the 70s, and where people were given things instead of earning it. And they didn't have any pride of ownership because they didn't earn it. And so they would burn their cities down, and they would shoot each other, and they would get money they didn't earn, so they would buy poison and drugs and alcohol, and I watched it happen. It was like a plague of negative black soul, You know, just, I don't mean black people, I mean the darkening of one's soul. And to watch Motown thrive, which was all black people, you know, the blues, the soulfulness of that authoritative music that inspired every artist you can imagine, especially Bob Seger and the MC5 and Ted Nugent, Kid Rock and Eminem and Jack White and Grand Funk Railroad and Iggy and everybody. That was that rhythm and blues soul. It started decaying because people were told they didn't have to earn, they didn't have to try. You stay home, we'll send you a fucking check. That's it in a nutshell. And that's what's happened in every liberal, Democrat-controlled city and state, from Chicago and Philadelphia and the entire state of California and Massachusetts and Maryland and Connecticut. You got people that don't think they have to be the best that they can be. And because that's the lowest common denominator of the human experience, negative and less than good people will latch on to that communism. That I won't really work my garden because I'm looking at my neighbor. He's working his ass off. I'll get some of his vegetables.
Yeah, you know, it's just from the Canadian perspective. When you see the news and you see the UN might have to step in to get residents of Detroit water, you go, "Holy fuck! What the hell is going on?" And I mean, it's the United States of America.
To an intelligent person, to a pragmatic, accountable person, the information doesn't register. It seems like we're being punked. It seems like a Twilight Zone movie. And it's indicative of why Barack Obama, a Chicago scam artist, a community organizer that never earned a dime in his life, his entire life was supported by government grants and scams and in Chicago, you know, deceit. And now he's the leader of the free world. God help us all. And that mentality, that non-American, that non-excellence mentality, it chips away at all the good. So the good is taken a hit by the negative. And Detroit is the poster child for it all. So what you see in Detroit is mankind going from rugged individualism and the Declaration of Independence to community hanging out and waiting for somebody else to provide for you and not caring anymore.
Yeah, you know, I want to get back to the music for a second. Love Grenade was 2007, ShutUp&Jam 2014. Your last book, Ted White and Blue, The Nugent Manifesto, was 2008. Does that mean that 2015 is a new Ted Nugent book?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm writing two books right now. Okay. One is called Stranglehold, and it's my life story.
Uh-oh.
And another one is called Bulletproof, and that's everything I live by is fact and statistic and historically evidence supported. And so when I get into a debate, if you Googled me and Pierce Morgan, you'll see what I mean. You try to argue with me with presumption and guesswork, I'll just completely annihilate you with statistics, facts, and evidence. I'm a smart man, but I'm not smart enough to think I know better than evidence.
Right.
I examine evidence and historical experiences, and not to mention my own 60-plus years of experiences, so I don't guess. I study information, and I make an intelligent decision based on corroborative evidence. And that's what my book is going to be about how I'm a human being, so I fuck up like a good human being should, but I learn from my mistakes and I don't repeat them. And if you studied my life, if you looked what my wife and my brothers and sisters and my kids and my grandkids and my band and my crew and my management, my Spirit of the Wild production team, my ranch managers, everything we do, these are some bad motherfuckers, man. Everybody gets up early and puts their heart and soul into everything that they do, and then they earn a break. You know, and they save for a rainy day, and they spend wisely and save wisely and eat wisely and live wisely, and so they can be an asset to their team, their neighbors, their community, and their country, and their fellow man, and the environment. Yeah. So it's not a mystery. The Ted Nugent way of life, I'm going to tell you, if the whole world lived like Ted Nugent's family does, holy God, there would be no problems. I swear to God. We'd have shot all the rapists. We'd have killed all the murderers. We'd have killed all the home invaders and carjackers. or at least wounded them if we weren't shooting straight, and they'd be in a cage, and they'd never be let out again to do the engineered recidivism that Canada, America, and every other country is guilty of.
You said you're writing an autobiography. Is that difficult to look back in your life, or is it easy?
Oh my God, it's a fucking orgy, literally and figuratively. It's, oh my God, I cry tears of unbridled hysteria. I was just on the porch with my ranch manager this morning, just telling stories about the road and the great men that I've had the privilege of sharing campfires and round table discussions with, the Fred Bears and the Chuck Berrys and the Ronald Reagans and the hanging out with Jimi Hendrix and some of the founding fathers of conservation and the bow hunting world and the musicians, the incredible gifts of God, musical geniuses.
And don't forget the fans. Don't forget the fans.
Oh, those are the people I'm talking about. Okay. I mean, these are the campfires. I mean, I hang out with people. I'm the most gregarious guy you'll ever talk to. I mean, I guide over 100 hunters every year, and who are they? Fans. Sure. But I don't like to, label them as fans because they're like, I use the word blood brothers. Right. Because we love the same kind of music, we love the same kind of politics, which again is individuality, self-sufficiency, productivity, goodwill, decency. So my book is going to be a riot. I'm not so sure how much Mrs. Nugent's going to enjoy some of the early chapters, but being that as it may, it's going to be a motherfucker, I promise you that.
Well, I think, I've read a whole bunch of sort of rock star autobiographies, and most of them seem to be one big giant lie, but I get the impression that yours is going to be brutally honest. I don't think you're ashamed of anything. I think, like you said, if you did something wrong, you learned from it and you moved on, and you'll write about it, honestly. And so I have, and my biggest crime in life is the worst crime a man can commit, this side of murder or rape or a criminal activity. I fathered a son during my marriage to Shemaine. Mm-hmm. And that was all over the media, so I'm not telling you anything new. And that's the worst human crime a man can commit. Yeah. And because she's a special person, and she is my soulmate through a lot of difficult time, she did forgive me, and I've been clean and sober, shall we say, for 20 years. I've not repeated that mistake. Now, the other children that I fathered were all, when I was either married to their mother or a single man, and they were not one-night stands. Right. So, I've been a sexual animal, and I don't apologize, and I think every one of my 9 children would tell you they're glad I had them, and they're glad I bred their mothers, and they're glad I didn't have safe sex. Yeah. And yes, that's a bit of a dichotomy. It represents a certain irresponsibility in some people's mind, but my God, I'm a human animal, and I was surrounded by these stunning, just indescribably gorgeous, sexy girls. What's a man to do, Mick? I think I did what I was supposed to do, and I was a gentleman throughout. I'd like to think I wasn't a wham bam thank you ma'am. I had a lot of girlfriends, and we had a great long running relationships. Many of them, 20, 30 years for God's sakes. So that's a chapter that is very titillating. And very interesting on the human level because people are always fascinated by that kind of stuff. They are.
And then my financial roller coaster ride of making hundreds of millions of dollars and have it all ripped off by a bunch of blood sucking crime bosses in the management and attorneys and accountants who butt fucked me royal. So yeah, it's a roller coaster ride. It's a fascinating human story. But the most important thing of all, 2014, I'm going on tour. I'm having the greatest concerts of my life. I'm definitely having the greatest hunting season of my life. Yeah. I'm having the greatest year of my life. So I'll keep knocking on wood, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think we're just about out of time, so I just want to ask you a couple more questions, and we'll finish there. In 2006, you did the reality TV show on VH1 that had the band come out of it, Damnocracy. There was all hope for some kind of album or some kind of tour, and it all sort of just fizzled away. How was it working with Sebastian Bach?
It was fun. He's a good man. He gets high too much.
Right.
So, unfortunately, you're dealing with only 60 to 70% of Sebastian Bach most of the time. On those rare occasions where you got 100% Sebastian Bach, it was absolute musical adventure. He's a brilliantly gifted and a fun and a kind man. He's a good man. But you know how I feel about getting high. Getting high is really getting low.
Yeah.
When you're high, you're giving away some of your sensibilities. You're compromising your authority, your musical prowess. You're reducing your human communication skills and emotionalism, and all that's critical to good music. Yeah. All the guys, Scott Ian and Jason Bonham, good God, are you kidding me? Just brilliant guys and fun to work with. But believe me when I tell you that those goddamn reality shows are anti-reality. We wanted to make music. We wanted to create genuine, passionate music, but it was an engineered quickie. We knew that I had to get back to my Ted Nugent stuff, and Scott had to get back to his music, and everybody else did. And Jason was getting ready to do some Zeppelin stuff and some Bad Company stuff, or whatever he did. I can't remember everything, but yeah.
Well, he was doing Foreigner at the time.
Yeah, that's their Foreigner. I don't think there was any expectation by any of us that it would go on past the TV show. And the real tragedy, Mitch, is that we really made some motherfucking music, and we were jamming and making music and being creative 10 times more often than what they showed on the television show. They were looking for, scripted kissing matches and stuff, and I'm just really let down by that. They tried to do that with me on Surviving Nugent, Wanted, Ted Alive, and Ted Nugent's Gun Country, and I literally refused. I would not do the Duck Dynasty thing for them. Or the Kardashian thing, and God bless the Kardashians, God bless the Duck Dynasty stuff. But I'm not when I'm on TV, I'm not playing a role. It's me. I can't be anti-me. I can't get angry at somebody for dropping something. That's not what makes me angry. You know what I mean? So I wasn't really a good a subject for what the reality producers consider reality, because it's all scripted, and they were looking to prod hokey, false representation. So it was a fun thing, and I think it was reasonably entertaining. It was very successful. It was rated #1 at the time, and I had a good relationship with all the guys. But I still think Sebastian Bach is sacrificing the most important moments in his life by getting high.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, before I ask you my last question here, I just want to thank you and Gene Simmons for your stance on alcohol and drugs, because I'm 46 and I've never taken either, and because I've always wanted to be in control. I don't like being out of control or out of my body.
Bingo.
And,
good for you. Congratulations, Mitch.
Yeah, and it was just always inspiring to see that I had two rock stars who I know could have been doing it 24 hours a day stand up and say, yeah, we're not doing it. And that was very inspiring from both of you. So.
Well, #1, I salute you. And #1A, thank you. Because I got to tell you, I get that every day.
Yep.
People tell me that every fucking day of my life, because I know I've impacted them. You go to my Facebook and you witness the tens of thousands. I think at one point we had 12 million people on my Facebook on 1 week. And I got to tell you, it is contagious. Like the song "Fear Itself" says, "Positive energy makes me smile," and that positive energy, it's contagious. It's outrageous. Positive energy makes me smile. It's outrageous. It's contagious. Victory makes it all worthwhile. Victory means ending your day on a positive note, knowing that you did positive things and impacted people in a positive way, and that's what my music is about 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear that, man. Good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll finish with this. I know you have other interviews today. Quickly, damn Yankees. And I'm not going to ask you the traditional question, are you going to make a new album? But I want to know, you were a solo artist for 15 to 20 years before Damn Yankees. Why would you decide to join a supergroup I mean, other than the fact that Jack Blades is a absolutely wonderful person to be around, but why get into that situation?
Oh, I'm an adventurer.
Okay.
Music is my driving force in life. You know, I'd like to think that I'm driven by God, family, country, and career, music, and the things that I pursue in and around. You know, I'm doing God's work as a conservationist. I'm benefiting my family by bringing venison home,
Right.
and I produce for my country. That's what my career does. It serves those three quality of life statutes. And I've always admired Tommy Shaw. I mean,
Right.
he's just a musical monster.
Absolutely.
And we both come from the same black rhythm and blues origins.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's not a James Brown or Wilson Pickett or Howlin' Wolf or Bo Diddley or Chuck Berry like I start that Tommy and Jack can't come throttling in on immediately. They know all the same stuff that I was raised on. And Michael Cardellone obviously was an upcoming force to reckon with, and he's proven that by being the throttle for Leonard Skinner since the damn Yankees.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I see an opportunity, for example, I'm a jammer. Shut up and jam. Tom Morello's a dear friend. And we don't agree on politics, even though if you really examine his lifestyle, he's more like Ted Nugent than he would admit.
Right.
He's productive, he's conscientious, he's clean and sober, he protects and provides for his family, and he's an asset. That's very conservative.
Right.
So Shut Up and Jam is what I did with the Tommy and Jack and Michael. Tommy and I got together and made music within seconds, Mitch. Within seconds. Come Again happened.
But you know, you're a solo artist, and you can control your album. You can control its vision. Why would you want to get into the sandbox with the other boys and give up some of your toys? Why?
Adventure, musical stretching.
Okay. It was a great album, by the way, or a great two albums.
Both of them. I think they were both wonderful musical statements, and I'm very proud of everything we ever did together. Absolutely. You know, I wouldn't be surprised, even though it's a fleeting dream at this time. But I'd love to create music with those guys again, because I know if we got in a room together, within minutes, killer fucking songs would happen. That's how real those guys are and how soulful they are. Not to mention their musical gifts. They just reek of music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm seeing Tommy Shaw tonight. He's out in Ottawa, and I'll be out at the show there with Styx and Foreigner and all that wonderful stuff. But you know, I'd love to see a third Damn Yankees album. It's due. You might as well. It was
absolutely. Well, you never know. If I can get out of the hunting season a little earlier, maybe we could do that.
There you go. Between the books, the hunting, and all that. Hey, you know, always a pleasure. Shut Up and Jam.
Well, Mick, that's it. God bless my Canadian blood brothers. Thank you for the music, and thank you for all the bears and the moose and the deer and the ducks. I have a real connection with my Canadian friends up there, and I hope that we can get back up there as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was a great thrill for me today. So thank you very much. And
thank you, Mitch. Shut up and jam, brother.
Thank you.
All right, live it up.
Bye-bye now. Well, there you have it. That was Ted Nugent talking about his new album, Shut Up and Jam, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, Russ, well, you got to take a few minutes. I think we need to pause for a second. Just let what Ted said sink in, right?
It tired me out. He's exhausting, but he's an interesting cat, man, and I'd go see him in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? He's passionate. It's just he is Ted for president. Let's go. Didn't Alice run for president at one time? I think Ted should go if he thinks he can kick ass. Let's see Ted for president.
Well, if you go over to him,
he wants everyone to work, though. Everyone must have a job.
Well, that's not such a bad thing. That people.
No, he says a lot of great stuff. You know, he's almost like, when you think of it. I mean, remember a few years ago when the Dixie Chicks got in trouble for saying all that stuff about George Bush. He's like the exact same thing, but on the the right. Right. They're on the left. He's on the right. So maybe they should do a tour together. Shut up and shut up.
Shut up and shut up. Yeah, actually. But listen, the new album Shut Up and Jam is great. And, you know, if you want a Ted for President bumper sticker, he does sell them at tednugent.com. So
he does he?
Yeah,
Okay.
head over for that and get a couple of Teds. But all joking aside, it was an absolute pleasure speaking with him. And I do respect his anti-alcohol, anti-drug stance. You know, what do you want me?
Yeah, well, he is a classic. Like, hands down, total classic. Love hearing him talk. And, go Ted.
So Let's get over to our thrashier side. Let's start talking Overkill. Now, before we get to Overkill, I got to mention I've got 2 tickets to give away to Heavy Montreal, and to win them, you've got to go to the one-on-one Mitch Lafon webpage. There's no with for the Facebook page. And I have an interview coming up with Monster Truck's Jeremy Widerman. And during the interview, he utters a secret sentence. And of course, what you need to do is find that secret sentence, listen to the interview, and then write in to the webpage. And of course, feel free to like and share the message and the interview as much as possible, because that always helps. And of course, after that, I've got 2 tickets for Skid Row at the Corona Theatre in Montreal coming up August 19th. And I've got an interview with Rachel Boland, Skid Row's bassist, coming up. There is no secret sentence in that one, but there is going to be something on the Skid Row Facebook page, and we'll give you details soon. So, Bobby of Overkill.
Interesting.
Yeah, they've got that new album, White Devil Armory, and so Bobby sat down and had a chat about Anthrax and Metallica and Megadeth and the Big Four and the new album, and playing Heavy Montreal and playing the New York Steel benefit show, which took place right after the 9/11 attacks. So, you know what? Let's just get right into Bobby and let him tell all the stories. Here's Bobby Blitz of Overkill.
Good. How you been? All right?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I apologize for being late. I had it written down as 1 o'clock, so I apologize for making you wait.
Yeah, don't sweat it. They have me tied up in the office. I can't go anywhere anyway.
That's the way we like it. So we'll talk the album. We'll talk the Heavy Montreal Festival and a bunch of other stuff, and we'll get started there. So why don't we start right off then with White Devil Armory? Tell me a little bit about putting the album together.
Well, we have a formula, obviously. This is our 17th, so, if you don't have a formula by this point, you're not paying attention. And that formula seems to be working for us, and we record primarily at Dee Dee's studio in New Jersey, a place called Gear.
Right.
And we start assembling the record from bits and pieces. I think that, we've always kind of had that blue-collar work ethic, eyes open, everybody's got a recorder in their back pocket, whether it be on their iPhone or something separate. So I think that it was a collection of pieces, let's say post-Electric Age, through that touring and through that downtime, and started assembling the songs approximately a year ago. And then it obviously goes through that process of development. All the guys get involved with the demoing and the changing of the songs. And I think if there's something different that we did with this, you always kind of want to expand, where you're going or what you're doing, is that I do a lot of the writing while we're touring. I really like to have that, that live theater bleed into a recording. And I've been getting some pretty good success with that vocally since the Ironbound record.
Right.
And then I come back after the tour and then apply those vocals to the recording process. So it was about a year-long process between, let's say, assembly and release, pretty much to our same standard, but with a few things, embracing some new technology, some new sounds, new approaches to writing, like doing it on the tour bus.
Well, what is the Overkill sound? You've had band member changes over the years. What is the one thing that is uniquely Overkill that keeps it constant?
Geez, I think it depends who you're asking. For me, it's always, it's Dee Dee's riff. I could pick a Dee Dee Verney riff out of, 1,000 other riffs in the room because of the way he writes things. And I think that he always uses a basis for that writing or let's say a common factor, but then morphs that into something that is relevant to the day. So I can always pick out that common factor. I think if you said to somebody else, what's the Overkill sound, they might say, oh, I think it's Bobby's voice, if you ask Dee Dee. And I think at the end of there's no identity crisis here. We know what we are. We work within the confines of what we are, but still like to push those confines out. And I think the only way you can do that is, keep your eyes open, continue to learn, continue to develop over the time. So this is what makes, in my opinion, whether it be the Electric Age or now White Devil Armory, something that's relevant to 2014 as opposed to, let's say, just rooted in history.
Right. Now, a lot of contemporaries have either stopped making albums altogether or they make them at such long intervals, 5 years, 7 years. You're sort of on a 2-year cycle, give or take. Why is it important for you to keep producing new music? I mean, you could just go play the festivals or the shows and not do anything, but you're motivated. What motivates you?
American insurance bills, they're very high.
I can imagine.
No, I think that, when you come down to the brass tacks, to the bones, we just have a blue-collar work ethic.
Okay.
I was my Dee Dee's wife, I've known as long as Dee Dee, and we were having a conversation one day, and she said to me, it's amazing that, two guys work together for a 30-year period, and then a guy like Dave Linsk has been there for 15 years, and Derek for 12, and Ron now for 10, and you have this relationship, and she said, it's because you have the same background. You basically have the same kind of parents from the same area who wanted the same things for you that you've kind of embraced, and then you practice, so I think that's what it is. I mean, this is always about, at the beginning when the rules were being written for this, I mean, it was a ruleless kind of a society, this subgenre of metal,
right.
That you gave a piece of yourself, and that kind of meant something to us back then, and I suppose this many years later, that motivation is that, am I trying to get that piece back, or do we have that commitment to saying when you give a piece of yourself, you're in for good? So I think that becomes the motivation, background and the value that we saw in it back then and the value we still see in it today.
Speaking of value, a few years ago there was a Big Four tour that had Megadeth, Metallica, Anthrax, and Slayer. A lot of fans thought, hey, where's Overkill on this? This band's been overlooked. Where do you sort of place yourself in the history of sort of hard rock heavy metal?
Number one.
Yeah. There you go.
In my house, anyway. But maybe that's the key. Is that we've I don't think we've ever compared ourselves. And I think that that's kind of the beauty of it, because if you're not comparing yourself, you're still relevant.
Right.
You're still competing. And new bands come along, and my feeling about those new bands is good for them, but my job is to bury them on the stage. Right. I like that competitive edge. I like to win. Right. I like to go in to win. So when it comes to that comparative, I've really always tried to avoid it. And I think by avoiding it, it's kind of left my mind open to the fact that I can enjoy this for what it is. Right. And that's, almost 3 decades of, that giving yourself that I spoke of earlier. I mean, this shit takes a piece of your heart. I mean, you're in, and part of that community, and still relevant and vital this many years later. That must mean something is working correctly. And one of the things I never did was that comparative. So, well,
I don't want to get you comparing again, but your 1991 album Horoscope, by many is considered to be either the greatest thrash album ever, or certainly your greatest thrash album. Do you have any stories, or can you recount that time in that album at all?
Well, sure. It was, it was a unique time for us. We had lost the songwriting team, or at least a third of it at that point. So it was uncertainty, and I can only say this going back because I knew it then only to be chaos. Not knowing where we were going or what we were doing, and we replaced one person with 2.
Right.
And I remember we were on Megaforce Records, and they actually had us audition the material for them at a club that our managers owned called L'Amour in Brooklyn.
Right.
And we went up there and played the Horoscope record in front of the record company. And I was thinking to myself, somewhere inside of me, I'm thinking to myself, the nerve of these people to even ask this. And the other side of me is going, we got to kill this.
Right.
So I think between that anxiety came a great record. And I think that there was doubt that surrounded that record, but not by us once we started getting into it. And I remember being in Stamford, Connecticut, with the guys, drinking beers day after day, making this record with Terry Date, saying this is going to come out of the cage like a roaring lion.
And
that was our goal. And it did. And so I think that once we brushed aside any of the doubt and had the ability to focus on it with fresh blood, it gave the band, let's say, a fresh life.
Do you consider it to be your best album?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's, this is like choosing between your kids.
Right, of course.
I think of it as a great time, and it's, and I always look at Overkill in chapters, and that was the first page of a new chapter being started because of that songwriting team that I had mentioned. Bobby Gustafson had been gone, Rob Canavino and Merrick Gant were now in. So it became kind of the second wave of us, and I look at it more as a time period as opposed to where's the greatest record. It's so hard for me to choose.
One of the shows I saw you at was the New York Steel Benefit back in 2001. How important was it for you to be part of that show, and how deeply were you affected by the whole event?
Dude, I mean, it was huge. It's huge for the world,
right.
But I don't think the world smelt it like we did over in Jersey.
Right.
I mean, it was, you could see, you could see the devastation. You could see the smoke rise. You knew neighbors that weren't coming home. You knew cops that went in. I was riding in a motorcycle club at the time, and we tried to get across the bridge and drop off work gloves. It was you were on the front lines. I mean, to some degree. Now, obviously, it's everybody's problem, but I think that when you smell the smell and you see the horror and you experience the emotions from those who either survived or did not, the family who lost someone who did not survive,
right.
that you feel connected. So it was huge. I mean, it was something important that what can you do? You could do this, no problem. I
right.
do that anyway. So there was never a second thought about it. We were just happy to be asked and be part of.
Yeah, and it was such a great event. I mean, I'll cherish that memory forever. And just to see you and Twisted and Anthrax and Ace give your time and to support the Police and Fire Children's Benefit Fund was something really unique and special. I don't want to move too fast from something that's serious, but you're coming to Montreal for the Heavy Montreal Festival. You've been here before. What is your take on playing festivals and this particular festival?
Well, this particular festival is one of my favorites, and I think for sure the quintessential North American festival. I think as I've seen it grow, this will be our third time there.
That's right.
I've seen it grow. The setting is fantastic.
Yeah, it's out on an island.
It's just awesome. I mean, that is like, talk about extended isolationism, where you can just go nuts, but you're still in the center of a city. Is just amazing. The lineup this year is just incredible. I mean, it's a Thrash Heads wet dream with Slayer and Exodus and Metallica and ourselves and Anthrax. I mean, that is just. That's if you're going for the 2 days, you're going to be treated to some serious headbanging. So I've always really enjoyed it, and beyond that, on a personal level, my wife loves Canadian cities. So whether we get shows in Ottawa or whether we go to Quebec City or now Montreal, she likes to come. So I actually end up spending a week around the festival, just hanging around and enjoying the local fare.
Yeah, it's truly a great festival. And let's finish on this. Armorist is the new, I hate to call it a single, but I guess that's what it is. And you've got a video for it. Is it still important in this day and age to make videos? And can it still attract fans to an album?
Well, and the definition of single has changed. This isn't something somebody would have picked way back then to entice new listeners to your music. This is really cut and dry overkill. This is, I think, the proof of this single is that as all things change, some things stay the same, but still have value in the current day. And I do think it's important for videos because I think it shows a certain separation, that it shows a certain experience. In age of instantaneous information, to be able to hit your tablet or your Droid or your iPhone or your product and be able to see that video, seconds after it's being released, to let you know that all is good in our world is an amazing feat. So I do think that in this day and age it is. I thought less so maybe half a dozen, 12, 15 years ago. But now, again, I think that it is for sure the thing that draws the line between the men and the boys.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. I thought it was sort of like, now that MTV doesn't exist, why make videos? But you're right. It is that instantaneous access, and seeing that visual, there is an impact. So.
Yeah, of course there is. And one of the things that, I've been pitching for years is the band's value in the current day. Sure we're rooted in history, but, what Overkill wants is for Overkill to be for what we are as opposed to what we were. And sure, we can talk about Horoscope, and a lot of good things have come from them. We've acquired tools along the way, and we've taken them from the Horoscope record, and we apply them to White Devil Armory, but we present them with present-day execution. And I think that to be able to see that and say everything's right in Dee, Dave, Derek, Ron, and Bobby's house, that it makes it more exciting for the release. And to some degree, at the end of the day, love this or hate this, that's what we like to do, is to do this stuff, to present this stuff. It's our job. So I think, again, that video is a necessary event in the release of a record.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And then, if I may, I'll ask you sort of one silly question. You seem to have had a feud with QUEENSRÿCHE over the year. What was that rooted in?
It's really hard for me to remember the exact, but I remember it came from a riff, and it was never it never developed from in me to say, oh, those guys did this. But I remember a riff being really similar, and a show that we had been doing together, and that their riff came out later on. But there was never really a feud. I remember it wasn't. If I remember the era, I wasn't the one that said, oh, we have to put this on there. Somebody else from the band really wanted that on there. And obviously we're at that point in your career, you're a gang. That's what it's all about. You're just a gang. You're kind of like hoodlums. You're hoodlums with a record budget and some equipment, and a refrigerator full of beer. So I think that what it was riff similarity at the time.
There you go. Well, it's always a pleasure, Bobby, and I've enjoyed every performance at Heavy Montreal and the New York Steel, and I'm so looking forward to this year's. So always a pleasure, and thank you.
Mitch, my pleasure.
Talk to you soon.
Later, man.
There you go, folks. Bobby talking about White Devil Armory. Russ, always a pleasure doing this with you.
Likewise, Mitch. Love chatting it up with you about all these great, talented people, and you're keeping the
rock flame alive.
Yeah, what's left of the music business alive.
Yeah, and I've got so many great interviews coming up for listeners in the next couple of weeks. We've got an interview with Rachel Bolan, like I said before, of Skid Row. I've got Dizzy Reed of Guns N' Roses coming up. Cobra Page of Cobra and the Lotus, who are currently on tour with Kiss and Def Leppard. And we've got a whole bunch of Heavy Montreal artists coming up. So stay tuned for all of that.
Don't forget the PayPal.
Well, yeah. Well, I usually need Mark to do that.
I know Mark does it.
I get shy.
Well, if I could read, I could do it, but
yeah, I know. Well, listen. All right.
In the dark. You better do it, or Mark's going to get you get mad.
We'll mention the PayPal. I do have a PayPal. It's mitchminute@aol.com. And, the money basically goes to pay for the Skype and to pay for all this stuff that keeps this show on the air, on iTunes and all that.
It's worth it.
And, any donation is appreciated. And speaking of donations and appreciation, thank you to the guys at Heavy Montreal for donating 2 tickets, which you can win by listening to the upcoming Monster Truck Jeremy Weiderman interview. And, of course, for providing 2 tickets to the Skid Row show August 19th at the Corona Theatre in Montreal. Folks, hope you enjoyed being one-on-one again. Join us next week, and of course, check out the web pages for our today's artists, Ted Nugent at tednugent.com and Overkill at wreckingcrew.com. And Russ at Russ Dwarf on Twitter. Thank you, folks. See you next week.